evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Coffee Table Conversation Episode 2. While we are entering into, I think, about 48, 50 at the day of the lockdown, we are seeing different challenges bringing across India, predominantly the failure of our healthcare sector and the rising migrant labor crises. This reminds me of the opening lines from a Charles Dickens classic, Tale of Two Cities. And I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way." Though this novel was based during the French Revolution, these lines seem more relevant in today's day and age. To assist us in managing our finance during such unprecedented times, we have Ronak Mojaria. He's a partner at the Value Curve Financial Solutions. He's a proud JBIS IMS alumni. He is a CFA and CFP with 7 years of experience in the financial markets. Prior to joining Value Curve, he was associated with Edelweiss Asset Management, Way to Wealth, and ApnaPaisa.com. He regularly writes on how common man should intelligently secure his future. His columns are published in various portals and newspapers such as moneycontrol.com, rediff.com, and the Times of India, amongst others. Today, he will advise us on how one should manage their finances during such times and work towards achieving our financial goals and securing our future. Hand over the floor to you, Ronak.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you all are doing well and you all are safe and fine. And I hope you all are not working much today, even though you have worked from home. And I suppose all of you all are free. And thank you for sparing some time for this session. I hope it would be helpful for you all. I'll just share my presentation. So firstly, I would just start with I hope maybe there or no, some of you might be expecting there could be some kind of pay cut, or you would not be expecting any kind of bonus this time, or maybe you would have to make a shift in your job. So there is a lot of uncertainty about your income today, which all of us, I'm sure, are having some kind of thought in their mind. So first and the foremost thing in such period is to have a contingency or an emergency fund, which is at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses, which you should be keeping it idle, because you never know how long this would go on. So what kind of expenses firstly you should keep aside is the household expenses, all your plus all your ongoing EMIs, which could be home loan or a personal loan, and any kind of school tuition fees for your kids which you would be having, because these are the expenses which are going to continue and which you would obviously have to keep on paying for these things. This is not like an employer who can cut down on any kind of expenses, like cutting down the salaries. You can't cut down on your household expense. You can't cut down on your home loan EMI. So these are the things which you will have to continue to be paying for. So first and the foremost thing I would recommend, if that you should be having at least 3 to 6 months of these expenses aside. Where should this be invested? You can either invest it in a liquid mutual fund, or you can keep it in a bank FD, which can be breakable anytime, which is very much liquid. Or in case if you already have a fixed deposit which you would have done for an investment, you should keep this aside as a contingency or an emergency fund. And this is not only during such time periods, it should be kept it always, because you never know, any kind of uncertainty can come out in your life. So first and the foremost thing you should take care of is an emergency or a contingency fund. Next important thing I would like to highlight, I'm sure a lot of you must be having ongoing home loans, and you would have felt a bit happy after the announcement that you've got a 3-month moratorium on your loans. But the question is whether you should opt for it or no. My suggestion is you should not go for any kind of loan moratorium. You should continue your ongoing EMIs as it is. The reason being, firstly, this is not free. It is not that you're not paying EMIs for 3 months, and it's not like a holiday for 3 months that after that you will have to pay and everything is going to remain the same. No, here you are going to you will have to pay the interest on the tenure for which you are not paying any kind of EMIs. So your interest cost in case of a personal loan or a credit card could be as high as more than 15% per annum, which is pretty much substantial. So you would be given an option from the bank either to increase your EMI and keep the loan tenure same, or maybe you would have got an option to increase your loan tenure keeping the EMIs same. But I'll just show you with an illustration how would it work. So just for your illustration, say for example, you have an outstanding home loan or a loan for the next 10 years, and you opt for a 3-month moratorium. Your EMI, the loan tenure would go up by 5 months, so which is 120 plus 3 months of moratorium and 5 months of extra EMI. So that would make your loan tenure extend for 5 months, which is now 128 months is something for which you will have to your home loan EMI would go up. So that is not a wise decision to go for. I would recommend that in case if you have any investments also which you can break and pay for your EMIs, you should try and do that, not try and take the benefit of this moratorium. Coming on, the next important thing is our health. Today everyone is worried about what would happen if we were to be hospitalized during such time, and how would we pay the bills. So today, first and the foremost thing, since we do have some kind of a thought that there could be income loss or a job loss or something, we should never focus and rely on our employer provided health insurance, because who will pay for your hospital bills if your employer discontinues the health insurance just to cut the cost, or if they reduce the cover, or they just say they'll cover yourself and not cover your family or and your spouse. What if you lose your job during such times? What if you shift to a new employer and he doesn't they don't provide you health insurance? Or at the time of retirement, obviously your employer is not going to be paying for your health insurance. So that is the reason why you should buy a standalone health insurance for yourself and your family, whoever are dependent on you, because that is something which is for which you would not want to break your investment or your savings, or use that emergency fund which you have kept for such time periods. Because if you were to buy a health insurance policy after getting disease like illness like a blood pressure or diabetes at an older age, it becomes even more difficult to get a new one. So the next most important thing during such time it should be you should be having a sufficient health insurance for yourself and your family. Next is I'm sure a lot of people, some of you would have not completed your tax saving investments because of the lockdown, because you would be relying that you would be making it at the end of the year, but the lockdown all of a sudden came in. So now government has announced that you can still continue to make your tax saving investments till 30th of June 2020 and claim tax benefits for the previous financial year, which is 2019-20. So here are some of the options under section 80C where you can invest up to 1.5 lakh rupees. One is the PPF, which is Public Provident Fund, which has a 15-year lock-in period. All kinds of life insurance policies usually have more than 10 years kind of term. Then there is Postal National Savings Certificate, which has a 5-year lock-in. Same way, the tax saving bank, if fixed deposits are there, which has a 5-year lock-in. And lastly, equity linked savings mutual fund schemes are there, which has a 3-year lock-in. So in case if you have not planned for your tax planning last year, you still have the time to do it in next 1.5 months, which we 2 months, close to 2 months, which we have. Do take the benefit of this, and so that you can reduce your tax outgo for the previous year as well. So now I would just like to summarize on the major things which you should be looking at and doing it right now during this lockdown period, because I'm sure some of you have some kind of spare time of looking at your existing investments and etc. So to start with, as I told you before, set aside a contingency or emergency fund which should be equal to 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. Keep that thing aside, right? Start from it today if you haven't done it till now, and maintain it forever. This is not for just these this during this period. You have to maintain it always. Secondly, you should review your existing life insurance policies which you have, and see to it that you have an adequate life insurance cover, basically, which is a term plan. So adequate means, I would just, as a thumb rule, I can just say it should be equal to 12 times of your annual income plus any kind of outstanding loan, because during such times you never know, in case of any uncertain event, your family would not only have an emotional loss, they would have a financial loss as well. So only a term insurance plan is one thing which can help you and your family protect the income loss of your family. Third thing, as I mentioned before, you should be having adequate health insurance for yourself and your family. In general, for a person living in a metro city like Mumbai, I feel at least a 5 lakh per person should be something which one should be having as in standalone health insurance for themselves and their families. The another most important thing is you should review your investments where you have made, whether it is fixed deposits or recurring deposit or mutual funds or direct equities or any other investments you would have made. You should try and link it to your financial goals. You should plan for your financial goals, where this investment would help you for achieving which purpose of your financial goal. So you should start doing it today. Link each and every investment. Like I said, if you have a fixed deposit done, firstly allocate to it as an emergency fund, which would be the ideal thing to do to start with. And in terms of financial goals, I would say you should start planning for your retirement first, because that is the only thing for which you will never get a loan also. So for kid's education, you will get a loan. For buying a house, which could be a goal, you will get a loan. But for your retirement, there is no loan available till now. So that is for first and the foremost thing you should start planning today. The next most important thing is try and not to take any kind of loans on try and use your investments for any kind of your financial goals. Don't try to burden yourself with any kind of loans, and don't use credit cards unless in case of an emergency like a hospitalization or something which can be all of a sudden. A simple mantra which I follow is loan. The word itself says na lo. You can just look at the word and remind yourself that loan means na lo. And lastly, I'm sure a lot of you have saved a lot of money during such times, because you have not gone for any holiday, or you're not planning to go for any holiday for the next few months or so, and you've not gone out for dinners, you've not done parties. So I'm sure you all have realized that how much money you have saved during this lockdown period. So try and make income and expense statement for the last month, wherein you would yourself realize where how much money, how much potential you have in saving your money, and where can you cut down on your costs, so that which can help add to your savings. Lastly, if you think all of this is not your cup of tea, you should try and talk to your financial advisor or planner and get everything in place, because this is the time when you are free and you can discuss it with your family and plan for it. Thank you. That's it from my side, Neil.
All right. Thank you so much, Ronak. You have been pretty much crisp in your presentation. Before I think I open the floor to everyone, I had two questions which came to my mind while we were discussing. The first being that now that the markets are crashing and they are going down and etc., uh, what do you recommend people to be in? I mean, what is the recommendation that you recommend, that you stick with your mutual funds or make equity investments? And also, interestingly, if you could throw some light on what we discussed, the returns also between the index and the mutual fund investments. If you could just throw light on that also.
So, as I mentioned before, all of us should firstly try linking each and every investments to our financial goals and try and see whether the kind of risk we are taking based on the time horizon of our investment, whether that risk reward is favorable or not to start with. Secondly, in terms of markets, obviously no one, everyone likes to buy high and sell, buy low and sell high, but unfortunately, we don't know when to enter and when is the high and when is the low. Today also, when the Nifty index is at like 92, 9300, we are not sure whether it could go down further or whether it could come up from now, or whether it would remain in these levels. So I would always advise everyone to put in money systematically through a SIP route, which is systematic investment plan. Or if you have some lump sum money to invest, you should put in through a systematic transfer plan and not try and time the market and feel like this is the rock bottom price. You may be right or you may be wrong, but it is always better to be investing systematically so that you can average out your cost. And as far as the returns of investing in direct equity versus a mutual funds are concerned, I just tried and pulled out some data on the Nifty 50 stocks which are there in 2010, and which are versus their current prices. So just to brief on that, so if you were to look at some of the, I'll just share my screen once. That would be. So as you can see, these are the Nifty 50 stocks which were there in 2010. So if you were to look at them, most of out of these stocks, you can clearly see some famous and fancy names which you always hear, like Cipla. This is a example of investing rupees 10. Had you invested 10,000 rupees in 2010, what would it have been worth as of 31st March 2020? So if you would have invested this money in 2010, so a stock like Cipla would just have been 10,000, have grown to 13,000. Idea Cellular, which is Vodafone Idea, would have just been 800 rupees today. While there have been stocks like HDFC Bank, HUL, etc., which have done super normally well, like your money would have multiplied 5 times, 6 times, and even 12 times in case of HUL. But always you should look at it that these investments also need some kind of research. You cannot go blindly that these are the stocks in Nifty, so they are going to go up. You can see some of these names over here like Unitech, Reliance Communication, Reliance Infra, Reliance Capital. They are now in double digits. You have lost more than 95% of your money over there. But at that point in time, you would have never imagined, like Punjab National Bank also. You would have felt that like, wow, Punjab National Bank is a PSU bank, or SBI. You would have not grown your money only, or 10,000 rupees would have just been 10,000 rupees. This is including all the dividends reinvested in the stocks. So one should always keep in mind that investing in stocks is not easy. It's always better to go for, in case if you don't have the time to do research on your own, you should go and invest it through a mutual fund, just to show if you would have invested the same things in a large cap mutual fund, easily on an average you would have doubled your money. So what you can clearly see over here that in majority of the 70% of the stocks are not even able to beat large cap mutual fund. So clearly it makes sense to, at least if you want to participate in the equity, a mutual fund is a ideal way to be participating, and rather than investing in stock market, because the downside in a stock could be unlimited, as you can see, though upside also has a lot of potential, but you need to be lucky enough, or you need to do that homework before you put in new money over here. I hope that answers your question, Neil.
That's a very interesting analysis. It takes away all that pain that I have that investing in equities is more intelligent. But I think you prove me that equity investment is not an extremely intelligent thing. I think we have some few questions. Lakesh has a question. Lakesh, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, hello
Hi
everyone.
Lakesh, how are you?
I'm doing good.
You're in
So
Singapore,
Ronak,
Mumbai?
no, in Singapore, very much in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a quick question. So what's your take on the investment in gold? So is it because what I see that, there's a complete increase in terms of the way it is moving up.
Right.
So do you feel that it will still be a safe investment to capture
So
some on gold, or?
gold, I would say gold should be, if you were to look at as an investment, you can consider it keeping approximately 5 to 10% of your portfolio, because gold, we have seen over a longer period, the returns in gold have been around 8 to 9% annually. In long term, I mean, more like 8 to 10 years plus, if you were to hold it for such a long period, the returns have not been that great. But yeah, just for diversification and not to miss out on something like this, you can consider putting some kind of investment in gold. But I would not recommend kind of a strategy to exit equity and go get into gold, because for that you need to really have a thesis behind why equity should not do well from here, or why gold should start doing well from here. It requires a lot of research and thesis analysis which needs to be done. But yes, as a portfolio diversification, I would say yes, you can consider investing in gold, and that too you can invest it via ETF or via gold mutual fund, where you can do a SIP, decide a monthly amount, fixed amount, and you can take the benefit of gold price movement.
Thank you. I think that was helpful. Thank you.
Hardik has a question. Hardik, if you could unmute and
Yeah.
ask a question.
Hi, Ronak.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good.
Great. Ronak, good presentation. It was very crisp and up to the point. So I think really great. I just want to quickly check if you can brief a bit more on systematic transfer plan, STP that you spoke about. I didn't have much idea on that.
Okay, so how a STP works is like, if you have say 2 lakh rupees lump sum to put in, and as I told, it's not advisable to put all your money one shot. What you can do is you can park that lump sum money in a liquid fund, which would give you slightly better than your savings account, and give a standing instruction to a liquid fund, wherein automatically every month say 10,000 rupees would be shifted from a liquid fund to a equity fund where you want to invest. So that is called a systematic transfer plan. Unlike in a SIP, which is systematic investment plan, where your money is auto debited from the bank, in a STP, your money is debited from the liquid fund, and as soon as the liquid fund money is exhausted, everything is invested into the equity target fund which you choose.
Oh, so but then you choose a distribution of that money across various equities, or how does it work?
So like if you
And
have
how is the frequency also?
so it all depends. So like in current time period, I would recommend something like 12 months kind of a STP would make sense, because this is the time I think markets would take some time to recover. So it all depends on how long would you want to stay invested. Say for example, if you feel that the markets are going to run up a bit, you can increase that monthly or weekly amount also, whichever you plan to choose in case of a STP. And in terms of funds, if you are already doing SIPs, it is advisable to go for those funds only and invest into the same fund, and not go for a new fund particularly for this, because ideal purpose of investing is to take part in the equity market. So if you are already investing through SIPs, you can in some of the funds, you can do it in the same funds only.
Yes. So then, Ronak, sorry, just does that mean like for the first month you're invested in some fund that you choose, your money is got in that fund and growing according to that fund, and the rest of the money is still growing as per the liquid fund.
Yeah, so you got it right. So say for example, as I told you, 2 lakh rupees which you have put, so that gets some kind of returns, as I told you, slightly better than the savings account, which could be around 5 to 6%. That would keep on growing at that rate even after the funds are being shifted. So 10,000 is shifted out to the equity fund, so the balance 1,90,000 will continue to grow as per liquid fund. Those liquid funds don't invest even a rupee into the equity markets.
Okay, got it.
And
Thanks,
in
Ronak.
case of any time when you feel there is a requirement, you need to withdraw that fund, you can withdraw it easily from a liquid fund.
Yeah, actually, it's a good thing you have a balance of having liquidity at the same time investing. So I think that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, thanks.
I think we have a question from Vishesh. Vishesh, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi Ronak.
Hi Vishesh, how are you?
I'm fine. So Ronak, I have a question wherein in current scenario, considering a lot of businesses are going through distress, market is also down. So usually we try to see when the market is down, we should invest in small or mid cap, so that because when the market will go up, these stocks will majorly run. Considering the business might not be really good right after lockdown or currently in the lockdown scenario. So what do you recommend? Only large caps, or do you recommend mix of both, or what is your take on that?
Ideally, I prefer having your investments across large, mid, small, as well as multi-cap funds based on your risk appetite. So ideally, what I tend to recommend is one should have at least 65 to 70% into large and multi-caps, more skewed towards large cap, and the balance, I would say, some 25-30% you can invest in a mix of mid and small caps. But in case if you are a risk taker, you are ready to take that kind of risk, then only I would recommend someone to have more exposure towards mid and small cap, because that is somewhere and even in such times, at least my belief is, once everything starts recovering, large caps would be the first ones which would recover early than the mid and small caps, because the large cap companies at least have a stronger businesses and a stronger balance sheets versus a small or a mid cap company, which would take time to recover even after the things normalize.
Sure. Okay.
We'll have 3 more questions. We'll try to take more after that, but 3 quick questions. One, Mihir, can you unmute and ask your question?
Hi, Ronak. Thanks for the presentation. Hi. Ronak, one quick question is, most of people who advise on finance are talking about, having their goals set and, depending upon the goals, like you mentioned, plan for your retirement and then work on. Now, there are a lot of times where you have these multiple goals, moving around and overlapping. Like you want your emergency fund as well as you want to plan your retirement. And then there is challenges because you are not able to fulfill your retirement goals, or you're not able to fulfill your emergency fund. And then at the same time, you are not able to have a goal for your, let's say, a child's education and stuff. And then again, each of these goals will have a different risk profiling.
Right.
You would want to, just put it in a FD kind of a situation or a mutual fund. How do you, take care of those overlapping things and, make sure that things are not getting daisy off? Because sometimes it happens is, okay, I have a lump sum amount, let me put it in mutual fund. Whether it is emergency or whether it is retirement, it is one and the same,
Right.
But then how do you fine line that differentiation?
So that's what. So like I said, if you have something idle or first, you should separate it out and not use it. Like just like I said, emergency fund has to be kept aside. You should never touch it in case of emergency. You should try and not use that at all. You should just forget it, or you should only think of it only when you have some kind of emergency. So I think emergency fund is something which is one of the things which is easy to keep and maintain, because there I think that is the first thing you can quickly do it and keep it aside. So, and I don't think it should bother you with other goals. As far as the other goals are concerned, say like your child's education or your retirement or child's marriage, you need to prioritize these goals. Like you need to have a priority that whether you want to have retirement keeping in all your lifestyle everything the same, or you would like to have want your child to go to the US and do get a master's degree. What kind of priority would you give to? I think firstly you should try and prioritize it, and then it is easy to maintain your investments also. So if you think you can compromise on your retirement and you want your child to go to the US, then you should try and start investing for your child's education goal, and then later on you can think for your own retirement. So I think priority has to be set in this case. That would help you plan and invest accordingly. So as soon as the requirement for one goal, you start investing the required amount for one particular goal, you should then shift to the another goal. You should not try and start everything thoda thoda for each goal and just start कि नहीं इससे मेरा थोड़ा हो जाएगा. You should not try and do. I would recommend to do it goal wise by prioritizing.
But in case of goal wise, aren't we losing on the timeline? Because if I am thinking about, let's say, 25 years down the line for my son's wedding or education for his college, if I don't do it for next 5 years, I'm losing out on that, which I could have done it with a small amount of a mere 500 rupees in a mutual fund.
Exactly. So that is there. So that is why you should try and do it as early as possible. And in case of that, I completely agree that if the cost of delay is quite a bit, in case you delay it for even 2 years or a 5-year period, you don't start investing for each and every goal now. But as I told you, you should then give priority to your near-term goals. If you think that you would have to compromise on your child's education or your wedding if you don't start from today, then you give that as priority from now. Or else you can try something. Try to manage your expenses and increase your savings so as to meet investments for all your goals.
Awesome. All right. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Chirag, you want to ask a question quickly?
Just one a bit of it, hi Ronak. Just wanted to ask you, mentioning about the liquid fund to Hardik. So regarding that, so how much can we earn on that, on the liquid fund? You said that since on the savings it's 5 to 6, so on the liquid fund.
No. Savings account it's 4%. So over in liquid funds it is close to 5.5, 6%.
Okay.
At best.
Okay. Got it. And regarding this person who was just mentioning, so why don't we do it such a way, like for example, we have a contingency fund of say an X amount and probably divide it like 75 to 80% for the child's education and his marriage and the remaining 20 for the retirement part? Couldn't we bifurcate that?
So I would just say these expenses, like 3 to 6 months of your expenses which you would be keeping it idle, wouldn't be a substantial amount which would be required for these goals. So
No, I'm not talking about the 3 to 6 months. I'm talking about over a period of time. Can't we, like for example, like keep an X amount and then just bifurcate that into an 80% going for his education, depending, because retirement would be much at a later stage. So keeping that for his education and his marriage and the remaining 20-25% for my retirement.
So as I said, I would generally try and do it on a priority basis. If this is the first thing I want, and I would start the retirement planning at a later stage. If I think, this is something I don't want to compromise on my child's education or marriage, I would do the complete thing and not let it have a shortfall in future. So generally,
Okay.
I would tend to do complete each and every goal, and not do all of it a bit and leave something and have a shortfall in future.
No, like for example, like if things aren't in your favor, you
Right.
there could be a possibility, like how we have the corona scenario right now. There could be this, plus there could be a possibility that your spouse falls ill. So that
Correct.
contingency fund needs to be taken care of, not only for your future, your finances, because you are going through this rough patch, but even for the medical expenses as well.
No, so the contingency fund, as I told, has to be kept it separately. You should not use it, any of the funds from that corpus, for investing into long term for your financial goals. I think you're
Okay.
mixing something with the
Okay.
contingency
So
fund.
done. Got it. So we'll just keep that separately.
Yeah, that
Fine. Got it.
need not be touched only unless in case of an emergency or something like this happen, and you have an income loss or something in your business or your job.
Right. Fine. Thanks, Ron.
Ratna, can you unmute and ask your question? Okay, I think Ratna is not here. So I'll just ask the question. She's asking if you can make investments in the real estate right now. Is it a good investment and it should be later?
So real estate investments is firstly a bulky investment which requires huge investment upfront. And even in case of real estate, we've seen there have been time periods where the returns have not been there, and the yield on the real estate investment has not been that great. Say, for example, if you were to buy a house and put it on rent, the rental yield over there is not more than 3% in a city like Mumbai. And I would say real estate should be chosen as an investment only after you have done all your investments for all your financial goals, and if you have some more money, lump sum money to put in, then only I would consider real estate as an investment. Because there is one negative, as I told, is that it has a huge lump sum money which needs to be invested. Again, there is illiquidity over there. Today, if you bought a 2 crore flat, and if you need say 20 lakh rupees for some XYZ reason, you will have to sell the entire flat of 2 crores and get use that to 20 lakh rupees. So one big issue is liquidity is also a big challenge in case of real estate. So there are these couple of reasons for which I generally don't prefer or recommend a real estate as an investment. But
So actually, Ronak,
I would say real estate should be only there firstly for your own self, and after you have done all your investments for all your needs and goals, then you can probably consider for diversification, because that is the only place where you need a large money for diversification.
Yeah, you're right. If you look at the returns in the last 10 years, I think it's negative technically.
so Ronak, just to quickly ask, it is like if you are paying a 30,000 rent, for example, and for a period of next 20 years you pay that, you actually dumping it there, versus you buying a real estate where again that the EMI can be 80,000, so you have to put 50,000 more every month. So then that's always a confusion whether you keep dumping it for next 20 years, or you still try to sell that 80,000 and buy a house. So that uh, in a long run, what do you do?
So economically, if we were to look at it that way, then obviously staying on rent is much cheaper in versus buying a house today, at least in a metro city like Mumbai. But there are few things, there are a few issues of staying on rent. Number one is after retirement, you will have to again plan for that, those kind of rental payments also for your own self at the time of retirement. Number two, there is a big issue of shifting in one house from one house to the other. So there are these kind of operational, or I would say these kind of issues which come up of by staying on rent. But
Yeah, but
economically,
financially,
I agree that it makes sense. It at least currently, based on the current rental yields which we are seeing today, staying on rent is cheaper than buying a house.
okay, so that would yield my finances to be stronger in a long run after 20 years rather than buying a house.
But just for
If
our
I,
peace of
okay,
mind and comfort, it's better if we have our own house. That is what all of us want, to at least have a shelter throughout our lifetime.
correct.
So everything I would not recommend to look at it financially
I think,
and
Hardik, the
Yeah,
difference is between investment and asset. So the
correct.
word we are talking about is investment and not asset. So one house is an asset technically which is required. Interestingly, Ronak,
Correct.
that we'll take
Okay.
about two more
Thanks, Neil.
questions.
Yeah.
One is from Vinay. Vinay, can you unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, so I saw about the contingency funds. So you're suggesting to put money in liquid funds. So what happened with Franklin, we all
hmm,
know. So
right.
ideally, the contingency fund should be risk-free, right? So for
Yeah.
one
So
person, should we take that risk?
so the Franklin thing which happened didn't happen in their liquid fund. Firstly, it was their other 6 debt funds where this issue happened, and it was not in a liquid fund. And you can see in my presentation also, I had recommended both. You can keep it in a bank FD or a liquid fund, but the only thing is it should be easily liquidable. Whether it is a bank FD or a liquid fund, it doesn't matter much. You're not putting in for returns. We are putting in, looking at it as a liquidity tool from where we can liquidate easily. So you can put it at either places.
So the question was like, still the liquid fund carries little bit of risk as well, right?
Right.
So
So,
for the emergency purpose, I should be putting in something which is absolutely risk-free. So
so,
uh,
so, so,
having
uh,
in cash or savings or say in FD should be means ideally that should be
so I
there.
would say if you're putting in a liquid fund, you should be aware of which liquid fund you're putting in and what kind of bonds they are holding. So that should be either your job, or if you have a financial advisor, should be his job to look at it and see what is there in the portfolio, whether he is recommended you, or whether you've invested in a liquid fund which is actually risky or no. Like in these 6 debt funds where this issue happened of winding up of these funds, they were actually risky. No one told them that these are risk-free investments. You just blindly put in your money. So I would again say you can go for a liquid fund, subject to if you are aware what kind, if there is any kind of a credit risk which the fund is taking in, you should be aware of it. Or if you're not comfortable with any kind of risk, then you can go for, because there are many mutual funds who don't invest, liquid funds who don't invest even anything below a AAA or A1 plus bond in a liquid fund.
Yeah. This is, I
yes,
think,
yeah. So
sorry,
yeah, right.
Vinay. Okay. This is a identical question I think Mehul also had on how debt funds are in the market. I think Sridhar has an interesting question on insurance. Shri, can you unmute and ask?
Hi, Ronak. Thanks for
Hi,
coming.
hi, Sridhar.
Just in times of crisis, we also know that there could be an income loss or job loss. So, is there any way that we can have an income security? Like we can insure our income? Is that any possibility in India?
No, there is no insurance of such thing. That is the only reason I said you can insure yourself by having an emergency or a contingency fund. That can only be your savior in such time.
Okay, cool.
Even any kind of insurance doesn't even cover for business losses due to lockdown. So none
Okay.
of these kind of insurances are available for an income loss.
And how about the assets? Like, for example, if you have an asset which is under construction and which is like a project only, but if the work doesn't go through and is there any financial loss, so can we cover that as well?
I didn't get your question.
Now, suppose you have a house at which is on your name, and
Okay.
there's some big reconstruction happening. Okay.
Okay.
Now, because of this uncertainty, I see some damages coming to me. Okay. Any way that can be done? Like my brother is into personal general insurance, so he says that you should always cover for all the uncertainties in business. But personally, like for example, your office would be under renovation and some work is going on, but due to this uncertain times, there is a big gap. So you might lose some money there as well. So
Cost of delay is what
cost of delay, or that project might not
loss
happen
of
like because of rain. Yeah. So
I can't recollect anything if there is anything like this, but even I'll have to check on this if there is something like this. But I haven't heard about something like this.
Just to give you an idea on
maybe Neil
this,
also can answer. Yeah.
Actually, to give you this idea on this is that it depends from segment to segment and sector to sector. The insurance always will be very capped and limited, and there'll be huge number of exclusions to it. So, for example, if you're in the insurance sector, in shipping sector, you have a P&I club that insures you, or you take a GIC, but your insurance will be quite limited, and they'll be absolutely bounded by a lot of exclusion. So this will be a very limited, say example, maybe a fire or something, so they may not want to cover you for everything, because then I think everyone on earth will come and start taking, claiming, and they will run out of money to pay you out. So,
Perfect.
so it depends upon completely sectors.
But generally, when you do it for commercial purpose, so is there any way out that you can actually cover your personal income losses, or say the expenses that you're incurring? So a project loss.
So
I'm not sure if that.
So Chirag is making a point. If you just see on chat, Chirag has made a point. He's right that Wimbledon had insured all their events, and because of
events,
there is a revenue.
And hi. So what happened is that these guys in Wimbledon, they had been paying the premium for I think so 6 or 8 years, and till now, in over so many years, never had there been an incident. But probably they had just foreseen that something could happen to that sort. So they had taken the insurance, and now also when they got the insurance, they haven't received that much what they would have probably earned the revenue from through Wimbledon. But still, at least it's some savings to them in comparison to the losses that they would otherwise face.
So yeah, like there are event insurance which are there, like even a wedding insurance is there, or an event, any kind of events which are happening. There are kind of insurance. In case of a wedding insurance, in case there is some issue in the family, or the person who is going to get married faces some accident or something, and because of which the wedding is cancelled, then also the money is paid. So there are events insurance which are there, which covers a lot of uncertainties, but it is not something like a I would say income protection insurance. I don't think something like that is there. But like Chirag said, Wimbledon is doing this kind of event every year, so they had covered that kind of taken an insurance cover for Wimbledon.
Okay. So businesses wouldn't be having that, Ronak?
So businesses, there cannot be something like this which can be covered. So you can cover your insurance for, as Neil said, a fire or a earthquake.
Those are the general insurance. Those are the general insurance that you're talking about.
Yes.
You cannot have an income loss. That is speculative in nature.
Yes.
Okay.
Chetan, you had a question?
Neil, Neil, I can just interrupt in this.
Sorry, please.
Okay, I think I'm just stretching out. I don't have the facts and figures in detail, but there is certainly certain remuneration in terms of the director's insurance and the key man policy which is available, in case, individually something goes wrong. So let's say if a director or MD of the company is, ill or something. So maybe on that aspect, somebody has to look into those insurance
So the
and look
key
at those
man
terms.
insurance which is there covers key personnel, like you said, directors, but that key man insurance is there for in case of a death, or there are liability insurance which are there in which you can buy for key person or directors, that in case if there is some legal or some kind of liability just come onto the director, which can be protected or claim, something like that is also there. But there is nothing for falling ill or something kind of a thing. In case of death, that is a Cayman life insurance which a company can take for its directors or partners, is one, and the other is the director's liability insurance. Like even a doctor can take a liability insurance that in case something goes wrong during his surgery, if he misses out something or he does something wrong during a surgery, he can cover it for that. Or in case there is some loss of the important papers of a medical of a particular customer, and if in case he files a claim for getting those documents, he can use this professional indemnity insurance and get the funds for arranging these, or pay to the person who is claiming for it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So something on that lines. I mean, again, it has to be looked into in a very detailed manner in terms of insurance somewhere.
Right. Right.
All right.
Chintan, you may please ask your question. I'm sorry I missed you earlier.
Sorry?
I missed you earlier, I think. You had asked a question earlier.
That's okay because other people covered up for me. So, hi Ronak.
Hi Chintan, how are you?
Okay, so here was a question which I and brother were discussing day before. That how do you and see I just wanted to have information on the disability cover and how many insurance policies or what kind of insurance policies do cover that disability policy, or otherwise how do you top up on your current insurance for the disability cover? Is there anything provision like this?
Yeah, so there can be two types of disability insurance covers which you should be ideally having. One is critical illness cover, so that in case of any kind of diagnosis of a critical illness like a paralysis, stroke, or a kidney failure or a cancer, there is a possibility that you might not be able to work and you might lose out on your income, and there is a job loss for you. There is a job loss because of which you would not be able to work. So a critical illness cover would pay you a lump sum amount. Say if you buy a 20 lakh critical illness cover, and if you were diagnosed with any of these critical illnesses and you survive for 30 days, the insurance company pays you this lump sum amount. Say like you've taken a 25 lakh cover, the insurance company would give you 25 lakh rupees, which can be utilized for your ongoing household expenses or your hospitalization expenses or your ongoing medical treatments. That is one for the on the critical illness. You may be disabled because of these kind of critical illness. The other is accidental disability cover, wherein in case of disability, permanent total disability, which means permanent loss of two limbs, your one hand or and one leg, or both your hands, both your legs, then there is obviously a certain chance that you would not be again be able to work and you would lose out on your income. So again, personal disability insurance, accidental disability insurance cover would pay you in case of such kind of disability, which will pay you a lump sum amount. Say again, in this case, like you buy a 25-50 lakh cover for personal accident cover, it would pay you in case of these kind of disabilities, which can be useful for your ongoing medical expenses or your household expenses, or you can consider it as an income replacement for your job, because you would not be able to work after these kind of disability.
Thanks, but that cannot be topped up on the any of the current insurance that is there.
So medical insurance will, health insurance or a Mediclaim will pay you only for your hospitalization bills. They will not be able to. So there is something specific like your Mediclaim would have, that if you have a critical illness, we will pay you additional cover. At best, what you can do is to protect to have a higher insurance cover for hospitalization because of such disabilities, you can add a super top up or a top up policy which comes at a pretty nominal cost for a cover of like 20 lakhs or 25 lakhs or a 50 lakh cover. If you feel that today if something were to go wrong with your family and the hospital bills could go really long, and these disability insurance policies would only pay after you have such kind of disability. But there could be chance, like even in current times we are hearing COVID-19 hospitalization bills are running more than 5 lakh 8 lakhs for like 2-3 days. So for such periods you can have a super top up kind of insurance policy which comes at a much cheaper cost and gives you a much larger cover.
Okay. Thanks.
Chirag, you may please ask a question.
Ronak, for example, I have an insurance policy of, for example, let's say 20 lakhs. Okay.
Right.
Then I take another top up from another company for another additional 10 lakhs. So now it's total 30 lakhs.
Right.
The first insurance company, see, generally insurance companies, they say that they'll pay you the entire 20 lakhs and all that stuff, but it does not happen that way. Let's be honest. They, for example,
yeah, you can complete your
because
question.
there are various factors. Like for example, I'm in a hospital and I'm admitted. They say that no, they won't charge you for a particular room and some XYZ reasons they give you. So they for example they pay you 75% or 80%. So you're still left with that 25%, which is a big chunk.
Right.
So when does the second company, the top up company, come into action? Does it come only when the entire 100% is utilized from the first company, or the remaining 25% will be repaid by the second company? How does it go?
So first point to make over here is I would always recommend to have a policy which would not have any kind of these capping on room rent or a co-payment, etc. Today there are policies which are available which do not have any kind of such cappings on a room rent or type of room. So
No. Sorry to cut you here, Ronak. Like for example, my father had taken one. There was no capping and all earlier initially on such things, but it's like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Now we wouldn't require any operation. It'll be later on in our life. That's when there are chances when they say that no, we do not accept this, and there are certain changes that keep on happening in the terms and policies of the particular hospital or that insurance company. So then how should we?
So that's that is what I'm saying. Whenever there is a change or something, or every time, firstly when you get your policy document, there are these terms and conditions which are mentioned. Usually all PSU policies from like New India, National, Oriental, United, they tend to have this capping on room rent. So firstly, you should try and look at it that something like this is not there. If it has, you can shift to some other insurer which does not have this thing. Coming to your main question, which is about claiming the balance 25% of the claim which is unpaid from the first insurer. So while I talked about a super top-up policy, that is a different policy. And I think in your question, what you mentioned is you have two different policies. One is 20 lakhs and another one is 10 lakhs. So yes, the balance 25% which is being deducted, you have the right to claim that 25% also from the other insurer, stating that these bills out of this bill, I have been paid 75%. The balance 25% can be reimbursed from the other policy, subject to, again, if they would be having such kind of capping on room rent or something, then obviously they would also not pay for these expenses. But so they would obviously look at their terms and conditions. If all of the things which are not a part of their terms and conditions, if everything is allowed under the other policy, they would reimburse the balance 25% to you.
Okay, so there's nothing that they have to the first company will utilize the entire 100 and then only the second company would come into action. There's nothing to that sort.
Right. And always you have the right to choose from which insurer you want to claim and how much. Earlier there used to be something called like a contribution clause wherein proportionately it used to you have to claim it, but now there is no such rule. The insured person has the right to go to the insurer and choose from whom he wants to claim it.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Great. I think we had a very long session. This was about an hour plus. I think we are done. I don't think we have any further questions. Let me stop sharing.
Oh.
Okay. I don't think we have any further questions. So what we can do is we can call it a day.
Sorry. Hi. Sorry to cut you here. Just now, Mehul has put in information. So I think so, which only after you exhaust the entire cover amount for the first policy, you become eligible to claim the amount from the next policy.
No. If you have, as I told you, if you have two standalone base policies only. So as I told you in your question, I don't think you meant a super top-up policy which I discussed. I think your question said you have a 20 lakh policy and a 10 lakh policy, then you do have the right to claim.
No, the 10 lakh is over. I combine it. For example, I take it's like a top up, which I meant.
I think he's discussing top up.
So if you're discussing a top up or a super top up policy, then yes, the other policy will pay only after the deductible amount is exhausted. So in your top up policy, what deductible have you chosen? It depends on that.
Okay.
So only after that deductible amount is exhausted, the other policy will pay you. Again, over here, there are two kind of policies. One is a top-up policy, one is a super top-up policy. Again, there are differences in the definitions of deductible over there. So in your case, I'm not sure you meant a top-up policy or a super top-up policy. Again, there would be a difference in terms of claiming from this policy in case of a claim.
Okay, just for our information, since all of us are here, so what would be the differentiation if you could just give it really quickly, a brief this thing?
So there is something called as a deductible in a top-up policy, and in case of a super top-up policy, there is something called as an aggregate deductible. Say for example, you have a 5 lakh base policy, which is a normal policy which covers everything right from the first rupee, and the other policy which you buy is a top-up policy with the aggregate deductible of 5 lakhs and a total cover of 10 lakh rupees. That is case number 1. So in that case, for example, if you have a claim of say 2 lakh rupees, first claim of 2 lakh rupees, you would use it from the base policy which is of 5 lakh rupees. Second claim, for example, if you have it, say for example, of a 6 lakh rupees, then the base policy would pay you 3 lakh rupees from there, and the 2 lakh rupees would have to be borne from your pockets, and the balance 1 lakh rupees will only be paid by the top-up policy, because in a top-up policy, each and every claim has to be above 5 lakhs. After that, only their liability starts. So that is the case in case of a top-up policy. Each and every time, the deductible has to be, the policy will pay you only in case your claim is above the deductible amount. Like in this case, the claim was of 6 lakh rupees, so 3 lakh rupees you claimed from your base policy, 2 lakh rupees you have to pay it from your pocket, and the 1 lakh rupees would be paid from a top-up policy. Whereas in a super top-up policy, if you have the same thing, a 5 lakh deductible policy, aggregate deductible policy with a 10 lakh cover, so in that case, they consider the total claim amount in a policy period. So in a super top-up policy, the first 2 lakhs would be paid by the base policy, the claim in the first claim, the second claim which came for 6 lakh rupees, the 3 lakh rupees you used it from the base policy, the balance entire 3 lakh rupees would be paid from the super top-up policy, because in that case they consider the aggregate deductible, which is the aggregate 5 lakh rupees claim has been done in one financial year. So right from the after completing 5 lakh rupees, they will have to start paying you for the balance amount. So that is the difference between the top-up and the super top-up policy.
Thank you so much, Ronak. Really information. Thank you.
I think then Ronak, the super top-up will have a higher premium. Is it much higher, or
slightly higher than a top-up, because obviously the benefits are higher, because here you need not
just
have,
slightly higher, not 2 times or something?
It depends on the age and the cover also, and the deductible you choose.
Okay, so, thanks.
Great. I think let's call it. We have all short of it's more than an hour that we have done this session. Ronak, any final words from you before I close the session?
No. I would just say thank you everyone for being a part of it, and stay home, stay safe. And in case if you would want to do it for something like this for your organization during such times, I would be happy to do that as well for your organizations. And thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much everyone for joining in. We had about 33 plus participants at the peak of it. We extended the session longer than we actually thought so. Thank you, Ronak, for agreeing to join us and sharing your inputs. I think some key takeaways is health insurance is important. You should take an additional from what your company is already providing. A term add-on will be extremely important. Choose a large or multi-cap mutual fund over equity investment. An SIP should continue in such market conditions because a return will be seen over a few years. You should create a goal so that you can invest according to your goal session. That's exciting. I mean, excellent inputs within about an hour. Thank you so much, everyone joining in. Next session should be next Saturday only. It will be with Chintan Bora. He'll give us an input into his industry, which is the hygiene industry, which is the HPC is what is called, on how post COVID, how they have coped up and how they are managing the whole session, and how the industry has caught up with this. So I thank you everyone for joining in, and hope to see you. We try to have one more session in between the middle of the week with Vishnu. For that, I'll just let you know once it's done. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.